Welcome to the deep dive. We take stacks of sources, sometimes really old ones, and boil them down into insights for you.
And today, we're tackling a big one, a text that's, over 2,400 years old.
That's right. It's influenced leaders forever, and honestly, it still feels surprisingly relevant.
We're talking about Sun Tzu's The Art of War, specifically the Lionel Giles translation.
Which is great because Giles adds so much context, introductions, commentary. It's more than just the text itself.
Absolutely. It's a source within a source, really.
So our mission today is to pull out the core wisdom, maybe some surprising bits, and, the critical ideas from this classic.
We want to get past just the famous quotes everyone knows.
Exactly. Give you a shortcut to really understanding this foundational work. Okay, let's dive in. Sun Tzu doesn't mess around. He opens with this incredibly stark statement.
Oh, yeah. The art of war is of vital importance to the state. Straight up.
It is a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or to ruin. I mean, that sets the tone immediately. No ambiguity.
He frames it as the absolute most serious thing a state can undertake.
Yeah.
You don't just stumble into war.
And to handle that seriousness, he lays out these 5 constant factors, like the bedrock principles.
Precisely.
Yeah.
These are the things you have to think about, deliberate on, before anything else happens.
Okay, what are they?
First is the moral law, which sounds a bit abstract, but it's really about the people being aligned with their ruler, truly aligned.
Like believing in the cause, trusting the leadership.
Exactly. So much so they'd follow them into any danger, without question. It's about that deep unity.
That's more than just discipline. It's about shared will.
Yeah. Okay, what else?
Then you've got heaven, which is, understanding the natural cycles, night and day, weather, seasons, timing, essentially.
Right. Can't fight a winter campaign the same way you fight a summer one.
Then earth, the actual ground you're fighting on. Distances, dangers, is it open terrain, is it constricted? You have to know it.
Makes sense. And the fourth? The commander. The general themselves. Their qualities matter hugely. Are they wise, sincere, brave, strict, benevolent? It's a whole package.
So leadership character is a core factor.
Absolutely. And finally, method and discipline. This is the practical stuff. How the armies organize, the chain of command, logistics, who controls what.
Okay, so moral law, heaven, earth, commander, method, and discipline. That's the framework.
That's the framework. And from these, he drives 7 considerations, questions you ask yourself based on these factors.
Like comparing yourself to the enemy using these points.
Exactly. Which ruler has more moral law? Which general is more able? Whose army is better trained? Who enforces rewards and punishments more consistently? Stuff like that.
And he says if you do this calculation in the temple or your tent beforehand,
you can forecast victory or defeat. The idea is the mental battle, the planning, happens before the physical one. Win there first.
This intense focus on calculation connects directly to his warnings about the cost of war, doesn't it? Especially long wars.
Oh, hugely. The chapter Waging War is almost entirely about why you cannot afford a protracted campaign. It's ruinous.
He says it dulls weapons, dampens spirits, exhausts your strength, drains the treasury.
And then, when you're weakened, someone else opportunistic comes along. It's a downward spiral.
He has that interesting line about stupid haste versus clever delays.
Right. Though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been seen associated with long delays.
So speed is generally good, but long drawn-out conflicts are always bad, strategically.
That's the core message. Avoid getting bogged down. He even brings up, the commentary brings up Fabius Cunctator against Hannibal.
The delayer.
Yeah, and while Fabius avoided losing battles, his strategy bled Rome's resources and dragged things out. Sun Tzu would likely see that as, not ideal. Clever, maybe, but not excellent. Excellence is swift victory.
Because the economic impact is just devastating.
Completely. State poverty, impoverished people paying for distant campaigns.
Yeah.
He uses that vivid image.
Oh, the provisions one. 1 cartload of the enemy's provisions is equivalent to 20 of one's own.
Yeah. It just slams home the inefficiency and cost of long supply lines. Living off the enemy is vastly preferable.
So the aim is always victory, decisive victory, not just fighting on and on. The general is the arbiter of the people's fate. Heavy stuff.
It really is.
Okay.
Which leads nicely into one of his most, maybe, counterintuitive ideas.
Winning without fighting.
Exactly. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting.
How does that work in practice? Is it just about intimidation?
It's deeper than that. It's about strategic positioning, diplomacy, disrupting their alliances, making their plans unworkable before battle is joined. You preserve everything, your resources, their resources, lives.
Like Multi at Sedan, getting the French army to capitulate through maneuver, not just assault.
That's a classic example Giles brings up.
Yeah.
You win by making fighting unnecessary or impossible for the enemy.
And he actually ranks the ways to attack.
He does. The best way. Balk the enemy's plans. Stop them before they start.
Highest form of generalship.
Okay. Second best, prevent their forces from joining up. Keep them divided.
Makes sense. Stronger together.
Third, actually attacking their army in the field, which is what most people think of as war.
But it's only third best for Sun Tzu.
Right. And the absolute worst, besieging walled cities.
Why is that so bad?
Immensely costly. Takes forever, drains resources, high casualties, requires specialized equipment. Just a terrible option if you can avoid it.
So the general skill, their completeness, as he calls it, is vital for the state. They're the bulwark.
Yes, being thoroughly versed in all this is key. But he also warns how the ruler, the political leader, can mess things up for the army.
Oh, right. The 3 ways they can bring misfortune.
Yeah. First, hobbling the army. That's ordering advances or retreats when the situation on the ground makes it impossible or stupid. Micromanaging from afar.
Yeah, that sounds disastrous. What's the second?
Trying to govern the army like you govern a kingdom. Using civilian methods, basically.
What does that mean? Like being too nice?
Not exactly nice, more like inappropriate methods. Armies need clear, swift, absolute command. You can't have committees debating battlefield orders, It requires a different kind of governance. No kid gloves, as Giles' commentary puts it.
Okay, so military command is fundamentally different from civilian rule. Got it. And the third?
Employing officers without discrimination. Basically, putting the wrong people in charge, not considering if they're suited to the specific circumstances or role. This tanks morale and competence.
Which leads us, I think, to maybe the most famous quote of all.
Has to be. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles.
If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat.
If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle.
It's brilliant because it's so comprehensive. Self-awareness and external awareness are both crucial.
And history backs it up. Giles mentions Fu Qian at the Fei River, huge army, totally underestimated his smaller, more determined enemy, and suffered a catastrophic defeat. He knew neither himself, his army's weaknesses, nor his enemy.
And this idea of knowing, it links directly to deception, right? All warfare is based on deception.
Absolutely central. If the enemy thinks you're far, be near. If they think you're strong, appear weak. If they're resting, harass them. It's constant manipulation of their perception.
Holdout baits, feign disorder. That idea of feigning disorder is interesting, looking chaotic on purpose.
Yes, to lure the enemy into a trap, which requires, ironically, perfect discipline underneath the fake chaos.
He talks about direct and indirect methods, too. Direct is just engaging.
Direct methods are for joining battle, standard maneuvers. But indirect methods are what secure the actual victory, the clever stuff, the surprises.
And these are inexhaustible as heaven and earth.
Unending is the flow of rivers and streams, meaning the possibilities for clever tactics, for deception are limitless. You just have to be creative.
He says, simulated disorder postulates perfect discipline. Simulated fear postulates courage. Simulated weakness postulates strength. It's like psychological jujitsu.
Exactly. It's about using appearances to mask reality. The story of Sun Tzu is perfect here.
Oh, yeah, the campfires.
Reducing his campfires night after night from 100,000 down to, 20,000?
Made the pursuing general think Sun Tzu's army was deserting and disintegrating.
Right. So the enemy rushed forward carelessly, straight into an ambush. Brilliant deception based on a simulated weakness.
And it's not just about big deceptions. He emphasizes reading small signs, too.
Yeah, being observant. If trees move, maybe there's an ambush, birds suddenly rising, enemy approaching. Startled animals, same thing.
Dust patterns, the enemy's language, humble words might mask preparations. Violent language might indicate they're about to retreat. Even how they drink water.
It's all potential intel if you know how to read it. It paints a picture of a commander who is deeply attuned to the environment and the enemy's behavior.
Which flows into his analogy of tactics being like water.
Love that one. Water avoids the high ground, flows to the low ground. Tactics should avoid what is strong and strike at what is weak.
And it has no constant shape.
Exactly. It adapts to the container. So military tactics shouldn't be rigid. You have to constantly Modify tactics in relation to the opponent. Fluidity is key.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, but still connected the actual ground, the terrain. He gets really specific.
Oh yeah, 6 kinds of terrain. Accessible, entangling, temporizing, narrow passes, precipitous heights, and ground involving great distance.
And the general must study these. It's part of that knowing the earth factor.
Absolutely. Each demands a different approach. You don't fight the same way in a narrow pass as you do on open ground.
There's that anecdote about Pi Xing.
Right, noticing the signs and moving his camp up a hill just before a huge flash flood wiped out the lower area. That's knowing your terrain and reading the heaven signs.
But just as important as knowing terrain is the general's own character again. He lists 6 calamities caused by the general's faults.
Yeah, things like flight, insubordination, collapse, ruin, disorganization, rout. These aren't caused by the enemy or terrain, but by failures in leadership.
Like Tianpu, whose army just ignored his orders because they didn't respect him. Result, defeat.
Exactly. Leadership failure leads directly to military failure.
Which perhaps explains why Sun Tzu gives the general such incredible authority. That line about fighting, even if the ruler forbids it.
If fighting is sure to result in victory, then you must fight. If fighting will not result in victory, then you must not fight even at the ruler's bidding.
That's huge. It puts tactical reality above political orders once battle is imminent.
It assumes a general of supreme competence and integrity, of course. But yes, the commander on the spot knows best.
And how should that commander lead their soldiers? He talks about a balance.
The crucial balance between humanity and iron discipline. You treat them well, build loyalty like Wu Qi sucking the poison from a wound.
Wow.
But you also enforce rules strictly, like executing someone for a minor infraction to maintain order. It's both care and absolute rigor. Confidence plus insistence on obedience. That equals victory.
Okay, let's touch on the 9 situations. These seem like more specific types of ground or strategic positions.
Yeah, they overlap with the 6 terrains, but are more about the Army's specific tactical position. Dispersive ground, facile, contentious, open, intersecting highways, serious, difficult, hemmed in, and desperate ground.
And each has a recommended action, like on dispersive ground, therefore fight not. Or on desperate ground, fight.
Right. It's about tailoring your strategy and even your army's psychology to the immediate situation. If your back's against the wall, desperate ground, you fight like hell because there's no other option.
Now, there's an interesting historical wrinkle here mentioned in the commentaries about Sun Tzu himself and the Wu Yue War.
Yeah, the quote where Sun Tzu sounds incredibly confident about beating you despite their numbers, I say then that victory can be achieved.
So, historically, Wu lost to Yu eventually.
Exactly. So it raises questions. Does this mean the text was written earlier, before that defeat? Or does it show that even the best strategic theory doesn't guarantee outcomes? It fuels debate about the text dating and context.
Fascinating. And speaking of Wu and Yu, there's that amazing analogy of the snake, the shuaizhan.
Oh, the snake from Mount Chengshan. Strike its head, the tail attacks. Strike the tail, the head attacks. Strike the middle, both attack.
He compares this to how soldiers should react instantly, cohesively, but then uses the example of Wu and Yu soldiers.
Who hated each other, but if they were in the same boat in a storm, they'd cooperate like left and right hands to survive.
So true unit cohesion isn't just about drills or tying horses together. It's about creating a situation where everyone must work together for survival or success. Unity of purpose.
Precisely. And the general fosters this partly through, guess what?
Deception.
Deception, even toward his own troops sometimes. Mystify his officers and men by false reports and appearances, and thus keep them in total ignorance of the full picture.
Why would he do that?
To prevent leaks, maintain surprise, ensure they follow orders without question based on partial information. Think of Panchao again.
Right, releasing prisoners to spread disinformation, dividing his own forces to confuse the enemy about his true numbers and intentions, master manipulator.
Absolutely. It's all part of controlling the narrative, controlling perception.
He even has a chapter on attacking with fire. Seems quite specific.
It is. 5 ways to use fire burning soldiers in their camp, burning stores, baggage trains, arsenals, or dropping fire amongst the enemy. But he stresses needing the right conditions, like wind.
And he mentions water can be used to intercept, but fire is more destructive.
Yeah, fire has a finality to it. But all this knowing terrain, deceiving, maneuvering depends heavily on one more thing.
Intelligence. Spies.
Yes, and he's emphatic about this. He calls it the height of inhumanity to not spend money on spies.
Why inhuman?
Because being ignorant of the enemy leads to long wars, defeats, immense suffering and death, and huge financial waste. Spending a little on intelligence saves vastly more in blood and treasure. It's a moral failing not to know.
That's a powerful argument. And he breaks down the types of spies needed.
5 types. It shows how sophisticated this was. You've got local spies using people from the enemy's own country.
Makes sense. Inward spies.
Recruiting enemy officials. Getting moles on the inside.
Converted spies, turning their spies against them.
Exactly. And he stresses you have to treat these double agents with utmost liberality. Pay them well, treat them well.
Okay. Then doomed spies. That sounds ominous.
It is. You deliberately give your own spies false information, expecting them to be captured.
Yeah.
The enemy then gets the fake intel. Sacrificial, essentially.
Wow. Tough business.
And the last.
Surviving spies. These are the ones who actually go into the enemy camp and come back with information. The classic spy.
And he says they need specific qualities. Yeah. Keen intellect, though an outward appearance a fool. Of shabby exterior, but with a will of iron. They need to be smart, tough, and able to blend in.
Like that story of Ta Wu infiltrating the enemy camp disguised as a watchman.
Incredible story. He apparently walked around, even disciplined enemy soldiers for being lax, all while mapping out their camp and gathering intel. Nerves of steel.
It really underscores that intelligence isn't just a modern thing. He points to ancient precedents, too.
Yeah, how the founders of the Yin and Chao dynasties relied heavily on figures like Adachi and Liu Ya, who had inside knowledge from serving the previous regimes. Intelligence has always been fundamental to strategic success.
So, wrapping this up, this deep dive really shows the art of war is so much more than just a military manual.
Absolutely. It's psychology, it's economics, it's leadership, it's understanding human nature and how circumstances shape actions.
The real costs of conflict, the power of knowing yourself and others, the importance of adaptability, the unseen influence of deception and intelligence, it's incredibly layered.
The insights just feel, well, timeless. Still sharp after all these centuries.
So you've heard about knowing yourself and the enemy, how all warfare is based on deception, the need for planning, but also flexibility. Here's something to think about.
Yeah, consider your own life. Maybe a complex project at work, dealing with a competitor, even just trying to learn something new. Where could you apply these principles?
Right. Where could meticulous planning, strategic adaptation, maybe even a little bit of simulated weakness help you achieve what you're aiming for?
It's worth pondering how these ancient strategies might play out, even far from the battlefield.
All right, let's dive in. We're talking about one of the most influential books ever written. Seriously, a 2,500-year-old guide to strategy that has shaped everyone from generals and emperors to modern-day CEOs. We're talking about Sun Tzu's The Art of War. But, and this is a big but, before we can really get into the secrets of the book, we have to tackle an even bigger question. Was Sun Tzu even a real person?
Yeah. You heard that right. This is the central mystery we have to get our heads around. Was he a real flesh-and-blood general who literally changed the course of history? Or was he, as scholars have been arguing for centuries, just a legend, a complete myth? Okay, so the evidence here is, well, it's all over the place. On one hand, you've got this historian, Sima Qian. He tells this absolutely wild story about a general Sun Tzu who, to prove his strategic genius to a king, took 180 of the king's concubines and trained them into a disciplined army. It's a great story. But then you look at the Tzuchuan. Now, this is the most important historical record from that exact period. It talks about Sun Tzu's contemporaries, the people he supposedly worked with. But Sun Tzu himself? Nothing. Zilch. He's just not there. And that is a huge red flag. And look, this isn't some new age hot take. People have been doubting this story for a long time. Way back in the 12th century, a scholar named Yeshue Xin basically said that story about the women was, and I quote, utterly preposterous and incredible. So the man might be a ghost, a legend, who knows? But the work itself, its genius, is undeniable. And that genius all starts with one single radical idea. And here it is. This is what makes The Art of War so much more than just a book about war. It's not about how to fight, it's about how to win. And more importantly, how to win without ever having to fight in the first place. I mean, listen to this. To fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Think about that. Anybody can charge into a messy, bloody battle and maybe come out on top. That's not genius. The real genius, the supreme excellence, is making your opponent give up before the fight even starts. It's about breaking their will. That one idea, that's the key to everything. And this isn't just some vague philosophy. Sun Tzu lays out a clear, step-by-step hierarchy. So what's at the very top? The best thing you can do. Mess up the enemy's plans before they even get off the ground. If you can't do that, okay, plan B. Break up their alliances, cut them off from their friends. Only after that, only then, do you even consider attacking their army. And the absolute worst policy of all, laying siege to a walled city. It's slow, it's expensive, it's bloody. For Sun Tzu, getting into a direct fight isn't a sign of strength, it's a sign your strategy has already failed. All right, so how do you actually do that? How do you win without fighting? How do you stop their plans and break their will? The answer Sun Tzu gives is both incredibly simple and incredibly powerful. It all comes down to one thing: knowledge. Not just a little bit of knowledge, total, complete, unflinching knowledge. And this leads us to probably the most famous line in the entire book. You've probably heard it. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. It's brilliant, right? Victory, heck, even just survival, comes from understanding yourself and your opponent inside and out. But what does it actually mean to know them? Is it just a feeling?
Nope, not at all. It's a cold, hard analysis. Sun Tzu gives you a literal checklist. You're supposed to ask these tough questions. For instance, which army is actually stronger, not just in numbers, but in morale? Whose soldiers, from the officers down to the men, are better trained? In which army are rewards and punishments more consistent and clear, so everyone knows the consequences of their actions? You see? It's about systematically breaking it all down. If you do this right, you can pretty much predict who's going to win before a single sword is drawn.
Okay, so if knowledge is the foundation, what's the tool you build with? Well, for Sun Tzu, that tool is deception. Once you have that deep knowledge of your enemy, their fears, their assumptions, their weaknesses, that's when you can start messing with their heads. He puts it bluntly, all warfare is based on deception. That's it. That's the core of his tactics. Your goal is to get inside your opponent's decision-making loop, control what they see, control what they think, and lead them right into making a catastrophic mistake. And the tactics he lays out are all about creating this false reality. So if you're strong, you act weak. Let them get arrogant. If your troops are perfectly organized, you make it look like chaos to draw them in. If you're about to launch a massive attack, you act totally passive and unprepared. Every move is a head fake, designed to mislead them so you can hit them where they're not looking.
There's a fantastic story that shows this in action. A general named Sun Tzu, supposedly one of Sun Tzu's descendants, was facing a much larger army. So what does he do? Night 1, he has his army light 100,000 cooking fires. The enemy scouts see this and think, wow, that's a huge army. But on night 2, he only lights 50,000 fires. Then on night 3, just 20,000. The enemy general, Pong Chuan, sees this and thinks, aha, his army is deserting. They're losing half their men every day. So he tells his best troops to race ahead and crush what's left of them. And they run straight into a perfectly laid ambush. A total victory won entirely by playing with the enemy's mind. So this all brings us to the big question. Why are we still talking about this? Why is a 2,500-year-old book required reading at West Point and in business schools? The answer is because its lessons are just timeless. They're not just about war, they're about strategy, leadership, and really human psychology. Think about that number, 2,500 years. For that long, these ideas have been put to the test again and again, and they've held up. The weapons might change, right? We've gone from bronze spears to corporate takeovers, but the fundamental rules of strategy, it seems they haven't changed one bit. And the list of its students is like a who's who of history. We're talking legendary generals like Cao Cao and Han Xin. We're talking about the emperor who founded the Tang dynasty, Li Shimin. He used these ideas to build an entire empire. And it's not just ancient history. Today, leaders in pretty much every field you can think of are using these same lessons. You know, the book isn't just about outsmarting your enemy. It's also a powerful guide to leadership psychology. Sun Tzu warns about these 5 character flaws that can destroy a leader. Things like being reckless or being a coward, having a short fuse or being too proud. And this last one is really interesting. Even being too worried about your soldiers if it makes you indecisive. And this gets to what might be the deepest lesson of all. You can't be a master strategist out there until you've first mastered yourself. And in the end, that's what it's all about. All these concepts we've talked about, winning without a fight, deep knowledge, deception, self-mastery, they all point to one ultimate goal. It's not about barely winning, about grinding out a victory. It's about winning so smartly with so much foresight that it looks easy, like the outcome was never in doubt. That is the true art of war. So I'll leave you with this to think about. In the battles of your own life, in your career, with your goals, whatever challenges you're facing,